Good evening, dear friends. In 2013, 2nd day of April, the book titled as The Divine Order and the Universe was published, 54 years after it was compiled in 1959, and during all those years it had been kept in under notary protection. Our Society, Metapsychical Investigations and Scientific Research Society, founded by Dr. Bedri Rüzelman in 1950. And since 1959 and the death of Mr. Rüzelman in 1960, our Society's activities were all about the preparation for this book. Of course, there were many other books written by Dr. Bedri Rüzelman back then, yet interestingly, after the compilation of this book, Mr. Rüzelman requested in his will to stop the further edition of his previous books. For many years, as we wait for the book's disclosure, we were referring to it as the Book of Knowledge because we didn't know its title, we only knew who were its guardians. And, when the book is disclosed to us, we found that it is titled as The Divine Order and the Universe. So, we did not give the book a title. This was its title we saw at the typewritten hard copy when Mr. Geyer came to our society. So, this title was used in its printed edition. I don't know if there are ones who didn't read it yet among our current audience. Here, The Divine Order and the Universe is compiled by Mr. Rüzelman, from the knowledge he received through the Spiritual Communiques series he conducted between 1957 and 1958, with the medium Attila Goyer. Mr. Goyer was 17 or 18 years old at that time. He was experiencing some psychic episodes and phenomena like sleepwalking. Mr. Huzrev Bildioglu brought him to the attention of Mr. Rüzelman. As Dr. Rüzelman worked with Mr. Goyer to help him, through his mediumship, a very rich and important body of spiritual communiques came forth as a bridge reaching to us, as it is written at the beginning of the book. During their work, many pages of information has been typewritten. Out of those many pages, Dr. Rüzelman made a compilation. This text has been read back to the plan that gave these communiques, and after their approval, the rest of the pages typewritten were burned. The approved text of the compilation has been typewritten in 3 hard copies and trusted to Metin Sakik, Huzrev Bildioglu and Attila Goyer. This compilation, after it is completed and copied 3 times, the spiritual plan requests it to be kept hidden, and these 3 guardians do not talk about the book to no one, even to their families. For years, no one had an idea about the identities of the guardians of the book. Only Mr. Sakik was visiting our society from time to time. He had the chance of learning from Mr. Sakik before his death that he personally typed these 3 hard copies. So, these 3 guardians, its medium included, withdrawn to their own private lives and for many long years, they literally guarded this book that is entrusted to them. We say entrusted because, when the compilation of the book is finished and approved by the Divine Plan, Mr. Rüzelman took these 3 copies to a notary and he waived his copyrights over this compilation and transferred all rights to its 3 guardians. Because this was a collaboration, then, each copy of the compilation has been officially sealed and trusted to its guardians. Mr. Rüzelman said to them, "My work is done. It is all in your hands now," and he resigned from presidency of our society, worked and stayed at his home to study English. The Divine Plan asked him if he wants to know the time of his death and Mr. Rüzelman replied, "No, I don't." The Divine Plan said, "As we expected from you." And 7 years ago, when we witnessed the opening of the seals, we saw that 3 copies are identical as typewritten pages. I had the chance of meeting Metin Sakik and the book's medium Attila Goyer in person. Mr. Huzrev Bildioglu had passed away in 1984, and when Mr. Sakik passed away in November 2012, Mr. Goyer received a signal from the divine system, directing him to contact the board of our society. He brought it to us. So, 7 years ago, we published the first edition of this book as it was in this hard copy, by keeping its original language, written in Ottoman Turkish. Later, the need of publishing it in modern Turkish language has arisen, so the Divine Order and the Universe is adapted to Turkish language we now speak and write. So, this was the process of the book's disclosure. You can find its original text, the new version in modern Turkish and its English translation at the website digital form. One may think that what was the reason to keep the book hidden at that time, for all those years? When we opened and read the book, we found that the content of the book, the knowledge it contains was not so easy to understand in the context of the knowledge of the time it was compiled. However, today, in our time, because we now have quantum theory, because the scientists have already observed the effects of the global warming, because the scientists talk about the effects of a planet X, we are not surprised by it. What is the content of this book? What does it tell us? I will mention a few points. In the second part of the book, there are many pointers to the current events all of us experience, which we can say, it is about prophecies about coming events. But before coming to that part, as a whole, what does this book tell us? Why it is so special? This book begins with these lines.
This book is part of the harmony we see, feel around us, and name as nature in a partial fashion. It is a bridge in our universe, between that path of light that we can only name as evolution and which reaches across to the knowledge of mankind. It is the one and only path that connects the limited and narrow matter life of mankind to a further stage that is wide and comprehensive. It is neither ours nor yours as mankind nor anybody else. It is a gift of the divine order given to mankind. That is, it is a part of nature. This book was given to Earth by those beings in duty to it from the unity of comprehension that we name as unitary, in a form to respond to the evolutionary needs of mankind. Voyages of Destiny.
Here, what is very important? As the plan says this, we see, feel around us, the plan includes itself in it. As the plan says, neither ours nor yours, the plan that named itself as the Voyagers of Destiny, and also mentioned as the pioneer in the interviews done with Mr. Geyer, even this plan of sublime duty talks about what they see and feel around and name nature in a partial fashion. So, none of us see the whole content of nature and they can only name it as the harmony. A system of harmony. And later in the book, they say long for the moment when you will be of that harmony. And they say path of light that we can only name as evolution. In the first part of the book, we read about how our matter universe came about, how the amorphous matter emerged, the structure of that amorphous matter and how it remained motionless until the influences arriving at it from the original principle, filtered from the unitary and how the amorphous matter responds to this initial influence. The first 20 pages of the book which creates the most hardship for the readers. We hear people say I read the first 20 pages and couldn't go further. Well, understandable, because the book begins with the knowledge of the beginnings of our matter universe, how matter emerged. If you have some basic knowledge of physics, then it is not that hard to understand. Simply put, the book explains how our physical universe, our matter universe and its amorphous state emerged. The book explains about the hydrogen cosmos. How that amorphous and motionless matter, after the arrival of the influence, gains motion. Just like when you flick an inert pencil it moves. Just like that, our universe, with the initial motion of the amorphous matter, comes about in this hydrogen cosmos, how its most fundamental levels or steps are emerged, the emergence of the first hydrogen atom. One of the most important concepts the book provides us with is the spirit-matter relationship. Spirit is not in direct contact with matter. Spirits are among the super-universe truths. They are exact opposite of universe substance. So, with this book, we learned that spirit is super-universe, outside the limits of the matter universe, a truth that is way beyond the uppermost point we can reach in our universe. However, due to the evolutionary needs of spirits, to meet their evolutionary needs, first influence from the original principle arrives at the amorphous matter of our universe, and this initiates the motion, later, the creation of atoms in that animated matter, and how novice spirits learn to govern those atoms. When the plan says novice spirits, they do not imply some inferiority etc. They mean those spirits are new to using that amorphous matter. So, the book explains that after this system of influencing begins, the spirits attach themselves to these atoms and how they go through a cycle of passive adaptation, so this is a process. Through this process, spirits begin to apply some movements and motions on matter by acts of gathering and dispersing atoms, matter combinations in an ever-increasing complexity. That is, within the matter, according to its ability to react to this action, more or less complex structures come about. And later, the questions the scientists ask like how many grams does a spirit weigh, or after death, from which part of the body spirit leaves, are now totally obsolete because, now in this book, we read that there is no spirit going in and coming out of the body. Everything is happening through the interactions of influences through magnetic fields of beings and objects. The divine order and the universe also explains us the development of our essence being, the positioning of our essence being with all of our experiences in those plant, animal, and human stages, that we have gone through 500 to 700 lifetimes until we reach our current state as humans. And all of those experiences we had are collected in a perceptual point of gathering, a point where all our comprehensions we distilled from all those processes and stages of development merge, and how we carry them along after death. So, the emergence of matter, of amorphous matter, emergence of the being, developmental stages of being, how the transition happens to plant, to animal, and to human stages, how at the beginning some certain things happened and learnt in an automatic manner, and later, how these were gradually developed into instinct intuitions, then in an automatic and later semi-automatic manner, turn into intuitions. So, we see such a progressing process of comprehension. Comprehension is explained in the book in many ways. And also, the book states that we, as we live within the matter system, what we call the hydrogen cosmos, we will never achieve a complete comprehension due to our physical and material limits within our bodies. Such topics are explained in detail in the divine order and the universe. The book explains about dimensions as spheres but not contained within each other, then it moves to the concept of time. As you know, here we have a progress of time runs linear. Yet in our dreams, in astral projection or some spiritual phenomena, in such experiences that happen in a very brief moment but felt by us as longer, we read in this book that for the essence being there is a totally different perception of time. So, many pages are devoted to the concept of time in the divine order and the universe. At some point, we even read that those 500 to 700 lifetimes happen within a moment from that higher perspective of time comprehension. That is, our perception when we are at the bottom steps of the hydrogen cosmos is different than the whole acquired comprehension of our essence being at that perceptual point of gathering. And when seen from that point, all of those experiences, comprehensions, all those past lives, ancestral systems, all those cycles is perceived differently. The beings gain experience within the plant structure, then they incarnate in an organ of an animal system until they can govern a human system. The book also explains the concept of incarnation. It is not like exiting some flesh body and entering to another. In this way, the divine order and the universe changed our many previous concepts. What else this book contains? After the beings reaching the human stage in its development, the book explains the functions of the brain and the nervous system, how the brain perceives, the consciousness, the subconscious, the unconscious, and the higher consciousness. For example, the book adds novel and different meanings to what we now know as the subconscious in the psychology. In fact, the divine order and the universe provides us with a novel model of consciousness. Let me talk about this novel model of consciousness, as currently believed, in our body and through our five senses, which is limited what we can perceive and filter in builds up our consciousness. As explained in the book, the brain and the nervous system communicates with all those systems in the universe. There is an immense network of communication that collects all the information and carries it to a center. What does this system do by collecting all those data? Here, actually I receive an electrical signal, and this is carried by the nerves and neurons to my brain as an electrical signal, and after receiving this data, my brain refers to, assesses with, and weighs against all those past experiences, as upon receiving an image, it is reflected to my retina upside down and my brain corrects it. That is, it turns an external electrical signal to a data, to information. And it does this in such a short time. So, this is a system magnificently arranged. Of course, there is a limit to my perceptions of seeing, hearing, touch, etc. On the other hand, everything we experience is continuously relayed to and stored in the subconscious that acts as a bridge. As the brain is built up after the conception, in the mother's womb, the information our brain cell beings carry from our past incarnations influence the magnetic field of newly formed brain as the being continues to shape the new body in the womb. Remember, as we said, there is no spirit entering or exiting the body as the new brain cells are formed in the womb, just like in the Matrix. It is such an inspired movie. When the heroes needs an ability, they download it to their bodies, so when a previous body is dissolved, when death happens, the brain cell beings do not dissolve and keep the whole information together. And when the being begins to shape another body for a new incarnation, the brain cell beings conveys all those information to the magnetic field of the newly formed brain. Currently, neurologists started to discover that what we will experience in our older age is already determined when we were still in the womb, whether we will develop Alzheimer's, whether we will become diabetic, the direction of our sexual orientation, etc. But neurologists still don't know what determines all of these, what motivates the brain mechanism in this way. Now, we understand from the divine order and the universe how this mechanism works, how we remember our past life memories, so now we are able to explain it in a clearer way. On the other hand, we also learnt that those past life memories are stored and kept in the subconscious, that the subconscious is a closed system to the external influences, and only under some certain conditions these are accessible to us. And now we understand the reason for it. If we could remember all those past life memories and experiences, we couldn't end some of our relationships with many people. Let's say, knowing and remembering that the sibling you are always fight with someone killed you or you killed in a past life would hinder and blocked your current experience of being a brother or a sister. Due to this, it is interesting that the divine order and the universe mentions some certain conditions. One of those conditions, as we all know, is dreams, especially the recurring dreams. We always go to the same place or re-experience the same event in the dream, and some of our dreams which are very impressive with an atmosphere of old times, but we don't know where and when. Those are from past lives. Another of those certain conditions is past lives. In general, we find that people come to us saying, I have this problem which I can't solve. I have a belief that I can't overcome, I don't know what to do and I cannot properly live my life with this problem, etc. So, if there are 500 to 700 lives throughout the developmental stages of a being, it does not mean that each of those lives ended with everything needed is done. The divine order and the universe never mentions this as karma but as causes and effects. We already know that what is called as karma in the Eastern teachings is same as you reap what you sow. In that sense, we know that we try to settle or finish the unsettled files, the unfinished business left from our past lives, and this is not necessarily be the immediate previous life. See, in the system, as we mentioned before, there is nothing like a linear progress. Sometimes we find that behind a cycle there are 10 or 15 past lives and a general or combined summary of those lives. So, if for a person, under some certain and purposeful conditions, it is time to recall and solve those, then we find that the information and knowledge of those lives becomes accessible. So, as our current world cycle gets nearer to end, to solve all those unsettled, unfinished issues, things and events becomes faster, we find it in our own work and also receive this kind of help. Well, the beings we call as spiritual guides, the divine order and the universe talks about those beings as beings with duty. Even for the smallest step to be taken in our universe, there is a divine order, a divine system, an organization that supports and governs it. And each unit of that system is called as a being in duty. And the development and progress within the plan of duty is explained in detail. That is, there is also stages of development in becoming a being in duty. So, we find all those stages and progressing in the divine order and the universe. The divine order and the universe devotes many pages to death and what happens after death, to the stages of death, to how imagination plays a big role in death, to the importance of imagination. And how all of our thoughts, feelings and emotions are also of matter, the function of emotions, and how some of our emotions are selfish as the others are altruistic, such as compassion and, of course, love. And the book says that the being advances with making choices between these selfish and altruistic emotions, as it chooses the conscientious ones more and more. The book names the advancement of matter as development and the advancement of spirits as evolution. This discernment is also important, the development of matter and the evolution of spirits. Matter develops as it receives influences from the beings. We, as beings, are connected to the evolution of the spirit. And as a human being, throughout this whole system, starting from the building of the being and its development and evolution within the whole matter system by living 500 to 700 lifetimes, the knowledge are being acquired, filtered from all those lifetimes, and the book names this knowledge acquired through all those lives as essence knowledge accumulated in the unconscious during our current life passes to the subconscious upon death, because when death occurs and the brain ceases to function, the consciousness and the unconscious does not function anymore. And then we compare our knowledge derived from that last lifetime with all that past life knowledge in the subconscious. In a sense, our being does an accounting by withdrawing into itself, and in this period of isolation named as the spatium, our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs plays a big role. The divine order and the universe states that the spatium is not a milieu or a space. So, this is not a place when beings go after death. Yes, our being's energy leaves this body at death, but our being is still within the matter universe, still in the hydrogen cosmos. Nonetheless, it is like a place for the judgment day, and it contains confusion. What is this confusion? As we know that when we die, we don't become aware of our death right away. Even, sometimes a part of our consciousness may stay bound in that life and continue the relevant imaginations, but it does not mean that this is the whole of the being. What stays behind is in fact an energetic piece of it. So, at the time of our death, our beliefs, feelings, emotions, thoughts, to what we remain clinging is very important in the spatium because the system is now closed down after death and we are only within and together with our imagination, and because we don't have now defense mechanisms, the system compels us to be with them until we complete this conscience accounting, until we are able to go beyond that point. Now we have to confront ourselves and deal with what we have and have not done. And we do this accounting after each lifetime. And, in this book, we also read about the function of dreams, the mechanism of dreams after it explains this new model of consciousness. Yes, we mentioned the importance of thoughts and beliefs of the current life we now have, because in the spatium, we create whatever we imagine. Let's say due to a mistake you made or due to a belief that you should be punished because of this or that reason, you experience this again and again until you become aware the developmentary needs, causes and effects regarding this event. As the divine order and the universe states, when the being is in the spatium, it is totally closed to the external influences, and it only receives influences from its subconscious. Later, after this process is completed, it may begin to receive influences from other beings, from its guides, or more correctly, from beings in duty. We read the mechanism of dreams, the kinds of dreams in this book, dreams influenced by the physical conditions, how the dreams influenced by the beings of duty are much clearer, etc. Remember the accounting? We also have a daily one to do. Our being also keeps a daily accounting book with the things we did or not by assessing the daily process from the point of conscience. However, after death this is more like the end of the year accounting, balancing the books. It is more like liquefying a company, everything we now are confronted with and compare with the knowledge gained from all those past lives. What was our life plan before we were born and how much of this plan we managed to realize, at which points we went astray. Yes, this book explains about life plans, how they are planned, and even how the time of our death can be changed through our sincere efforts, how some of our experiences are destined in the context of those temporal plans and on the other hand, the differences between destiny and fate. All of these are explained in detail in the divine order and the universe. Besides dreams, the book explains mechanism of mediumship and the importance of sleep. This is such a book that when you read it again and again, some parts sometimes will be always new as if you have never saw those lines. I've read it many times and whenever I open the book again, sometimes I think how come I didn't see this before. And when I mention the mediumship, let me say a few things how Dr. Bedri Rüsselmann conducted these spiritual sessions. He used the psychic disassociation method. In this method of disassociation, the medium's consciousness is still active, that is, the medium's consciousness is aware of whatever happens and is said during the session. In general, Dr. Bedri Rüsselmann had been using this kind of method for the spiritual communiques. Yet in this book, as the mediumship is explained, physical mediumship like moving objects with telekinesis, its mechanism is also explained. And how sometimes the unconscious of the medium becomes inactive and then the words uttered by the medium are monitored or checked by a cadre or mechanism, and after this double-sided auditing, the system approves the correct words are spoken. In the sessions the knowledge in this book was received, Dr. Bedri Rüsselmann was the operator or controller, that is, he is the one who asks the questions, who directs the session. In a sense, Mr. Rüsselmann's strong magnetic field was playing a big role, like a lightning conductor grasping and grounding this knowledge. I think, when in Mr. Rüsselmann's presence, that medium was immediately into the session. Because Mr. Rüsselmann could ask those questions, this knowledge was received and could be written down. Yes, in this book, the role of the medium is explained in detail, also how those incoming influences are conveyed, and as you know, there are many channelings we read nowadays. The book also explains how during some of these channelings, parasitic information may be given. What does it mean? Now in our times, the number of channelings grow. In the old days there were Ouija board sessions, and it means that there are many such earthbound beings, the being who are not able to join with their essence beings, who couldn't complete the transition process, and in the book, these were explained in the obsession mechanism, how a discarnate being can dominate the field of consciousness of a living being, and how all those interactions are in fact via the interaction of magnetic fields. Let's think it like this: you are a receiver, and your own being transmits signals to you, like a radio receives from a broadcasting station. You are tuned to a certain frequency, and this is the station from where the influences of your own being come from, and you emit these influences out like a song. But where is the source of your music? It is outside of the radio. You know, in the first days following the invention of the radio or TV, people thought whether there are small people speaking or singing inside these gadgets and opened up these to see them. Now we know that such a gadget is a receiver and emitter. And even we can say today, our brain is like a modem. When we can properly receive this broadcasting, we only emit out the influences of our own being. But if we can't, then there are other broadcasting stations, and their signals can interfere with ours. This reminded me the radio channel of our society, 105.6 Meta FM we had years ago, and the signals of the nearby stations were sometimes stronger and there was interference in our broadcasting. Likewise, sometimes we are exposed to this interference, the signals of these parasitic beings. However, if such things occur, the book says that they are not in vain, they are mutual learning experiences, under the governance of beings in duty. In regression work we call these attachments, like a clinging energy. Here in the book, obsession is a technical term. If we talk about that beings or that broadcasting's total merging with our radio, then it is called possession. So, possession is the further stages of obsession. What I could mention here so far is a very brief summary of what you will find in this book. I mentioned dreams, sleep, time, globality, obsession, mechanism of mediumship. And after this part, the book explains from where humanity came and going to, from a larger scale, the meanings of the events we experience individually and communally, humanity's stages of development, and for humanity to go through experiences how migrations, wars play roles in the development and evolution of humanity, and comes a point in the book, you feel that the evolution of humanity and evolution of spirit converge, because as this world school is coming to its end, at this point we reached our essence knowledge we gained by going through those 500 to 700 lifetimes. This is a special point we arrived at. Humanity had other previous school term systems or cycles which previously we had thought 7 or 9 times, but the book states that such world schools were built and ended thousands of times. Since the world created, such cyclical systems were built and collapsed 1,000 times. And the cycle that ended before us, which lasted nearly 70,000 years. The book talks about Mu civilization at length. It does not name Atlantis, but a vast continent which occupied the space where the Atlantic Ocean is now. We had learnt about it from the Edgar Cayce readings. And we learn from the book how the Mu civilization had arrived at a very high level of material development, but even with that high technology, the beings had to go through many tests and trials, and also, the increasing the canceration events, of the cases of cancer. About cancer, the divine order and the universe specifically says that it occurs when world matter does not respond to needs of the beings anymore. When this world matter does not meet the evolutionary needs of the beings, then cellular degeneration begins. Imagine that your body is in such a state that you either can't receive this incoming signal or broadcasting or receive intermittently. Then, the being cannot properly use this vehicle, and at the point the body is not responsive, then canceration begins. And behind all of these, remember that the divine order and the universe states that emotion is only the manifestations of the most fluid material possibilities of the world. So, this is a matter system. The book even states that all those systems we consider spiritual are but in fact matter function whose liquidity is in increase. So, everything is matter within the hydrogen cosmos. And, the spatium our being withdraws into after death is also matter. So within this hydrogen system we continue all those comings and goings again and again. Yes, as humanity we came so far, but where are we going to? The divine order and the universe explains this as it gives detailed information about the closing stages of this world school. Especially, the last parts of the book is about our solar system, that a sojourner planet which 400 times larger than our Earth diverted from its own orbit and now getting closer, a planet whose effects started to be detected but still invisible to our scientists. Nowadays, astronomers try to explain such effects on our solar system, seemingly coming from a huge celestial body which is still invisible. There are many articles written in English by foreign scientists, by Russians as well. Well, the divine order and the universe separates the coming days into certain sections by 50-year periods. If we consider the fact that this compilation was completed in 1959, then the first 50-year period ended around the beginning of 2000 to 2010. Now it is 2020, so we are now within the second 50-year period. And in this second 50-year period, this 400 times larger than Earth sojourner planet is getting closer to the solar system. And because of its magnetic field's influence, both the magnetic fields of the Sun and our world will be affected. The final effects will be a polar shift, tilting of the axis, etc. Considering the fact that even the hydrogen flares in the Sun affects our magnetic fields, you may imagine the effects of such an axis tilt and the effects on the world's magnetic field. Natural disasters, deluges, earthquakes, behind all of these processes is this sojourner planet's magnetic field acting on our solar system. And they will increase. Global warming was not a topic in 1958 to 59, but all those years ago. The book lists how the weather temperature and sea levels will increase country by country, how the rainfall will increase, and how the humanity will experience some diseases as we live through this process. Right now, a natural mechanism, an invisible virus made us stay at our homes, and it said to humanity, stop. And within this process, all of us will be compelled to break the habit of so many things we are identified with, the material structures which we continuously consume. Right now, we are in a mandatory retreat period to question everything. Where am I going? All those things I continuously run after or cling to, are the things I want really what my being needs? This is a period we will understand these. In the final analysis, no matter what you own, right now we are all equated. This virus didn't see any difference between a prime minister or a prince or a homeless person. It has shaken some sense to all humanity and shaken us deeply. With this systemic shake, we are forced to reorganize our relationship with matter. Matter is becoming more intelligent. Take recent developments of AI for example. Now, there are too many conspiracy theories out there. Let's assume that there are some groups planning and programming this progress of humanity, some powers that be, but there is still some greater divine system governing them, that taking humanity from one stage and carrying it to the next one, that also using all those material interests of humans as a tool. Now, this divine order or divine system does this in a magnificent way. As the book states, the beings also evolve through selfishness. So, someone may be of the selfish side as well, as the saying goes, the fight of darkness and light. The same thing had happened in Mu, remember? At one side the sons of light and at the other the sons of darkness, their wars, etc. Yet the greatest battle is within us. It happens due to our internal dividedness. One side of us progress on the egoic, selfish path and the other on the conscientious path. Depending on which one we feed more, some shifts occur toward that side. And when such a shift occurs in a system, then, systems get activated to balance it. So now, the system's balance is disturbed by humanity, so it is now active to restore the equilibrium. Nature is getting balanced. Nature lives its own process. We forget this fact. We are not the owner of this world. We are only guests of the world. We only use this system to serve the development of our being and the evolution of spirit. Well, back to the Sojourner planet, with its influences getting stronger as it gets closer to our solar system. What had happened before will happen again, and then, after its ending, the book says that another school term will begin. And all of us are spending effort for graduation. Yes, as I mentioned, the second part of the book is mostly about how this cycle will end, cancerations, how weather temperature will rise by the countries, and due to these changes how in fact humanity will go through tests and trials to pass from me to we. And now we are rehearsing this. I think this corona pandemic is very important in this sense. A space is opened up for us. A space for mankind to catch its breath. Now, after all those hustle and bustle, we can pause to plan our actions for future. Life suggests us to lead more minimal lives, to let go whatever is unnecessary. So, it is better to do it in the physical level, tidy up your drawers, but more importantly, please don't forget to open your subconscious drawers and cupboards. We are always here to help you in this regard. All right. Thank you for your participation in this online lecture we publish for the 7th anniversary of the publication of the Divine Order and the Universe, dear friends. Good evening.